David, I'm glad to see you wearing your yarmulke because
Well, the center part of it right here is the yarmulke, right here. It's extended.
sure it's a yarmulke. Every head is a yarmulke
Okay,
because we're
great.
going to be discussing Torah, and you're going to be in a unique position
Yeah.
of supporting and defending rabbinical tradition. Here
Well,
we have
that
rabbinical tradition, and then it gets shaky because there's some confusion, especially since the Second World War. People are confused. The rabbinical tradition clearly says that the earth is flat, and we're going to get into more details. And then modern science is teaching, and the people don't know what to teach their kids. People don't know what to teach in the schools. So hopefully we can get some clarity on that.
I got you, I'm going to be straightforward with you guys. I know very, very, very little about the Torah. I'm not a full-on practicing Jew. I'm just a person born Jewish. I was bar mitzvahed, and I was not a practicing Jew. Austin, on the other hand, is here. He knows the Torah. Uh, Saying it better than me is not saying much, but he knows it pretty well, and he's going to help answer those most of those questions.
Now, just to give some background, David, that
Yeah.
besides for the written Torah, there's the oral tradition, what we call the Talmudical tradition. So most of what we gain, most of the mitzvahs that we do, most of the way we react to the world is based on a rabbinical tradition. If you want to know what a Talmud scholar does, he's not studying the scripture. He's not studying the prophets, the Nevi'im. He's doing much more than that. He spends majority of his time, more than 90% of his time, on the rabbinical tradition. And that's what we're going to bring up also, because that's something that none of your other guests discuss, and that is, we call it Chazal, which stands for Chachamenu Zichron Levracha. That includes all of the Talmud. There's two versions of the Talmud. There's the Babylonian Talmud and the Jerusalem Talmud, and there's other midrashim, and all of them are going to support your teachings. And I just want to give some background because there's a lot of people out there that are not ready to listen until they feel confident that it's aligned with our tradition. If they feel that something is against our tradition, they wouldn't even want to hear about it. Don't talk to me about this. So that's what we're going to introduce and show how, the classical flat earth model is completely aligned with our tradition, both the written tradition as well as the Talmudical, rabbinical tradition. And based on that, we're ready to listen now.
That's awesome, and I love it. The way I look at flat Earth is, you have your different religions of the world. So somebody, from one religion isn't going to pay attention to the book of the other religion. They all, in my opinion, and evidentially, support flat Earth. But science, actual science, is if you use actual science, it applies to everybody, no matter what your religion or lack of religion. So, um, I love talking about the science, but we'll also talk about the Torah because both of them will support it. And the Torah is definitely a flat Earth book, but again, we'll get into all of that.
And just to respond to that, just keep in mind that the flat earth predates all religions. For example, the story of Noah's flood predates religion. Our religion comes from Sinai. Okay, we have the story of the family, the Jewish family, the Shvatim,
Mm-hmm.
the brothers, and then we all stood at Sinai. We received the oral law. We received the Talmudical law. But the story of the flat earth of creation is not uniquely ours. There's nothing Jewish about creation. Creation belongs to all the civilizations. All traditional civilizations throughout the world always believed in the story of creation and the idea of the flat earth well before any specific religion was being developed. So, in certain ways, the flat earth predates that.
I got it. I love it. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. And I do hope some of the non-believers here come in and ask their questions. I love talking to people that know flat earth, and you're going to teach me a lot about the Torah today. But I want people to ask, if you're here and you're a globe earther, please raise your hand. Let me unmute you. Let's hear what you have to say, and let's discuss it. I guess we can get started. Austin, are Are you here? Yeah. There
I
you are.
am here.
Everybody, this is Austin Witsit. Him and I are here to answer questions and have a hearty discussion. I'm guessing that most of the troublemakers from the email stream, the email thread won't show up. So, maybe at one point I'll let people unmute themselves, but for now, I just think we're going to do raised hands. We're going to let people ask questions. We'll respond. I will keep them unmuted so they can respond to us. And as long as the conversation stays productive, we'll just keep on going and see what we come up with. Again, there's a lot of other conspiracies out there, a lot of other questions about history. We're not discussing those. We're discussing the flat Earth today, and and why it matters, and how all the questions you have. It's an important thing. So, did one of you guys have a presentation that you wanted to do at the beginning? Shalom, was it you? Somebody wanted to do...
No, I wanted to give just an introduction. I was told to keep it to 10 minutes, which is very tight, but it'll just give an overview.
Let's go. Fire in the hole.
Okay, so we're trying to understand the shape of the earth according to the Torah. So in order to do that, we need to give some historical context and historical background. From Bria Sol, I'm going to be throwing in some Hebrew words. Austin or David, if you don't understand anything, you can stop me. Otherwise, you're for sure going to catch the drift and the gist of what I'm saying, even if you don't understand every specific word. But I'm going to just speak in the way that I'm comfortable in speaking and the way that people are used to understanding. Okay, so from Bria Salam, which is creation, until today, there's only been 3 explanations of how to understand this place where we live. From the start of creation, for the first few thousand years, the only explanation was what we're about to learn today, and that is a flat, stationary earth and a solid domed firmament above that surrounds that, and the walls that keep in the oceans. That was what the whole of Klal Yisrael understood. That is what all civilizations understood. That lasted until about the second half of Bayis Sheni, that is the Second Temple era, where certain Greek philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, suggested this new idea of a spherical earth. So at the time, it didn't necessarily catch on, but starting from 100 years in the current era, that's when the Roman Empire co-opted and adopted all of the philosophical teachings of the Greeks, and they were an empire. So wherever the influences of the Roman Empire spread, so too did certain philosophies, including the idea of the spherical earth spread. However, it's important to keep in mind, we're going to call this the Greek-Roman model. It's important to keep in mind that the Greek-Roman model is very different than what we're learning today, very different than the idea of the solar system. We're just going to point out some very important points of it. First of all, you're dealing with a stationary sphere surrounded by 7 other spheres of the firmament. Like if you can imagine a babushka doll where it has a circle inside of a circle. So that's what we're dealing with in the basic Greek-Roman model. Number 2, all the celestial bodies are non-physical entities. They consider them some form of spiritual entities, and they were all located within the layers of these spheres. The Earth was completely stationary, and there was no explanation for gravity. So go ahead and try to explain how a spherical Earth works without the power of gravity. And Maimonides writes that, certain philosophies, says Maimonides, just don't make any sense. For example, the spherical Earth, maybe there are certain ways to understand it, but how can you possibly explain people standing upside down with their feet on top and their heads on the bottom? So that's how the Maimonides approaches the idea. Now, that lasted for an additional 1,500 years until the Copernican revolution. That changed the idea of the globe completely from what it was until now. So the most important part of the Copernican revolution, it was a revolution of materialism. That throughout all the centuries until that point, they considered the celestial bodies in its own category. In other words, although you can see a tree and touch a tree, you can see a car and touch a car, celestial bodies were always considered different. They were always special. And the idea of the Copernican revolution was to say, no, materialism, it's all about materialism. It's all in the physical realm. It's all rocks in space and fire in space. Second thing he introduced is he took away the firmament, just made it disappear. All the psukim, all the verses that talk about this solid firmament, and there are dozens of them. I found hundreds of them. Just made it disappear, and now there's this idea of outer space and expanse, and nothing's there, and suddenly distances are expanded to billions of light years in all directions. That was a major departure. And number three, the third major departure of the Copernican theory was this idea of motion. The Torah says clear, the verses state clear. I found maybe 100 verses that the earth is stationary and solid and never moves. And suddenly they changed that. Oh, it's the earth that's in motion. We're flying. We're on some kind of spaceship flying through outer space, spinning and wobbling. So now we're trying to find out what's the Torah's approach. It's very simple. All we have to do is that now that we have these three models, we have to look into the Torah and see which one of these models is showing up in the psukim. Psukim means the verses. So I personally, a couple of years ago, created a list of over 300 psukim that clearly are mashma more. In other words, it sounds more like the flat earth model more than anything else. Now, about half of them clearly refute what we studied today, clearly refute the idea of a earth in motion and the idea of outer space. But there's many of them that are sounding like the exact model that we're learning today. And there are two things you have to be especially looking out for. The first one is anytime you see in the psukim, anytime you see in the verses, this idea of a wall surrounding the earth, keeping in the oceans. And I found dozens of verses that describe that. And that's what we're going to learn about today. This idea of a flat ocean surrounded by the oceans and a wall surrounding that appears in dozens of verses. The second thing to look out for, that you know for sure that you're not dealing with the Greek-Roman model and you're not dealing with the Copernican model, is where the Torah describes pillars holding up the sky, or edges to the sky, or describing the sky like a tent. So anytime you see there's some connection, some communication between the earth and the sky, that has to go like the flat earth, because that doesn't work with any of the other models. So I have this list. I'm happy to post it on the chat. I can make it available for everyone. I have it in the form of a spreadsheet. I have it in the form of the individual verses written out. Most of them are self-explanatory. Some of them need a little bit of an explanation. Some of them you have to look into Rashi's explanation before you can fully appreciate. However, this is clear that all of our written scripture can be best understood according to the flat earth model. Now, there's going to be a group here that might not fully agree with me, or they're going to question, and that's fine. We can schedule another Zoom meeting if you want in about a week's time, about same time, same bad time, same bad channel. We can come back at 11 o'clock. We discuss these verses, and I'm happy to respond to any challenges or any questions. But now we have the Talmudical tradition. Now keep in mind, the Talmud, there was some overlap between the Talmud, when the Talmud was being written and when the Greek-Roman philosophies were being spread. So technically, it would have been possible that our rabbinical tradition does somehow align with the Greek-Roman philosophies. So all you have to do now is take a look. It's all there in thousands of pages. There isn't even a single mention anywhere in the Babylonian Talmud, in the Jerusalem Talmud, anywhere in the Medrash, not a single mention of a spherical earth. It's not mentioned once, even in passing. Now, people are going to challenge me about two certain, I'm not going to continue on about this, but there are certain passages that people find questionable based on a mistranslation. For example, the word kadur has been mistranslated. Also, have you heard this word? The word kadur has been mistranslated by a lot of people. In modern Hebrew, the word kadur suddenly became a ball, a sphere. But in scripture and in Talmud, I can clearly show through many, many proofs that the word kadur has always mean a flat plane. And that's the way the Gemara describes the earth. So that being the case, we have the rabbinical tradition to support us. So what we're going to hear now is that what this crowd that you're speaking to, Dave, now, they want to know that our rabbinical tradition is true. We want to hear this. We want to hear that the facts align up with scripture, that we don't have to bend the scriptures to fit in with some other model. We want to know that the facts support that our rabbis knew what they were talking about. Not like people think today, oh, man, they were living in the dark ages. They actually thought the earth was flat. No, we're going to see that they were smarter than we thought they were. And that's going to be the point of this meeting. Dave, any question about anything I just discussed now?
No, that was excellent. And you said that this group wants it to be true. It doesn't matter what we want. We want to just find the truth. I know that's what you meant. But when you look into this, you will find that it is true and it does support it, and that's going to feel good. But again, we don't want to look at it with a bias. We want to look at it looking for the truth. Austin, you want to chime in?
Yeah, so what Dave just said is what happens. So I will say this, like consistently, quote unquote, science ends up making all kinds of claims over time, right? And then acts like we've surpassed the scriptures and the scriptures are archaic and don't know what's going on. But then as we continue to investigate, actually it always just ends up that the scriptures were correct the whole time. And this happens over and over and over and over. And it's the same thing with cosmology and with the earth. And so, we're encouraged to investigate and test the truth of the scriptures. And when you actually do that, you end up finding out, oh, wait a minute, it was right the whole time. So I do encourage people to kind of, give that a chance at least, or investigate it, and you may be surprised.
And what you said is, people looked at the, oh, they lived in the dark ages. All of our history is a lie. The dark ages, this is what they told us was going on, in America and around the world, when in reality, the world was more like this. So once you start looking into the lies of our history, the lies about where we live, about who we are, and about creation, you'll start seeing the truth. And once you see it, you'll understand how important this truth is. One thing that everyone says, and I'll toss it back to you, Isaac, and then we'll go to questions, I guess, is what difference does it make? I still have to go to work on Monday, is what people have been programmed to say. And I said it. And I refused to watch stuff. I threw out all of the basic, boats over the horizon and all of the stuff that I was indoctrinated to believe. But then when I was forced to look, I didn't even look optimistically. I didn't look objectively, where I said, okay, let me see what the truth is. I went in, I'm going to disprove flat earth, prove the globe, and be done with you idiots. And that was my attitude. But then that's how you become a non-glober, all right? Because some people don't like the term flat earther. It's not a globe. We're trying to figure out what it is. We know it's a level, non-rotating, topographical, horizontal plane, and it certainly matches the Torah and other biblical books, religious books, and we'll see. And science supports it too. So once we get there, once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's what I'm trying to say. Isaac?
Okay, I just want to make a very important point here, and that is the crowd that's listening to you now and will listen to this recording is very different than any crowd that you've ever spoken to until now. Normally, you know that more than 90%, 95% are thoroughly indoctrinated with the theory of evolution, that humans evolved from monkeys. The crowd that you're speaking to now has utterly rejected the theory of evolution. Number one, we all believe that the earth is young. We believe the earth is less than 6,000 years old. Number two, we all believe the story of evolution is a complete hoax. Now, the basis for this, even though there's all kinds of scientific proofs and pictures and Piltdown Man and all the creatures in between humans and monkeys, but we have a klal, we have a rule, and that is that ein mikra yotze midei peshutai, that a pasuk cannot be taken out of its literal translation unless our rabbis, our Talmudic tradition tells us specifically to do so. So if the Torah says that on the sixth day of creation, humans were created, humans were made, it's not negotiable. That's what the Torah says. Now, what's interesting here is that even among our society, while at the same time we've rejected evolution. For example, I taught English in one of the yeshivas here. If an English teacher were to come in and say, guys, kids, I'm going to teaching about the theory of evolution. We know that science has taught us we all came from monkeys. They take that teacher and they would expel him from the school. You don't belong here. Now take another teacher, such as myself. I come and I said, guys, I think we should consider the flat earth. That is what the Torah says. that is our tradition, that's what sounds like from Chazal, they throw that teacher out also. What are you doing saying something that's completely politically incorrect? I said, wait a second, what's going on over here? Where did I go wrong? First, you said, I need to follow the literal translation of what the pasuk tells me, of what the verse tells me. Then you're saying, when I offer an explanation that could be supported by science and our observation, that supports what the pasuk is telling me, you're telling me I can't say that because it's not politically correct? So this is what I'm saying. We are a crowd, we are listeners who are very, very close. The way I explain it is that most of us are flat earthers. We don't all realize it yet. Okay, because by rejecting evolution, by accepting, we're called Bible literalists, by accepting the literal translation of what the verse tells us, without any manipulation, without any interpretation, we are already flat earthers. The only thing we're missing is, what are the facts? And that's going to be the topic of today's meeting.
When was the earth created?
Our tradition is that the earth is 5,785.
But like when was the earth created in comparison to the sun?
Okay, so we have the 6 days of creation.
Right.
First day is Vayhi'ar, light and dark. That's the first day.
Right.
Second day, the all-important firmament stretched above the sky. Third day of creation is things started to grow. Fourth day of the creation is the sun and the moon. So what we had was light and dark.
Right.
Before the sun and the moon. Now, of course, modern science tells us the opposite, that the sun had to have been there before the earth. So right now you have a contradiction.
So what is the earth orbiting for the first 4 days? Where is the ball earth? You know, the earth in the heliocentric model needs the sun.
There is no explanation, and none of this makes sense.
Correct.
And I feel bad for your typical second grade Rebbe in a school who has to try to explain to the students the story of creation and somehow make it aligned with modern science. I feel bad for that guy.
All right.
Because that's a very tough job to have.
Anything else before we go to questions? And Austin, you can chime in before we go to Aaron.
Well, yeah, quickly. I mean, when it comes to like the nature of the earth in the scriptures, it's really not even up for debate. You would have to actually claim it's like figurative, right? But there are a few things to maybe think about, right? Like what was Nimrod prevented from doing? Like what was their objective when they were building the tower? And like how is there a firmament if supposedly people are going out into deep space? And I would say that the firmament is like the biggest one that's just so vividly contrasted from what they claim is true. And then if you kind of look into it, that becomes very interesting, right? Because they claim they went to space, they went to the moon, and they turned around and saw a globe, and that was the first picture claimed to prove the Earth's a globe. So that's like that's very significant, in my opinion. So like they claim to do something the scriptures say you can't do, went to the moon, turned around, that's when they proved it was a globe. So yeah, anyway, I would just say that if you look back at the scriptures, interpreting a literal, like just view it literally, then you'll realize pretty quickly that what we were taught in the mainstream doesn't comport with the scriptural description at all. And I would say like it's pretty endless. It says the sun does a circuit, the sun is local, you have the light for the day, light for the night. We see them be the same size, and they claim the sun's actually 400 times bigger than the moon, just coincidentally by cosmic happenstance, exactly 400 times further away. So they look like they're the same size, and it goes on and on. So, then I will just say this again. So if the scriptures are inspired by the one true creator, right, then there should be no fear of testing it. And so then you get into kind of what I think Dave and I might end up talking about, which is like the actual evidence, the actual physical, tangible evidence on the earth. And it overwhelmingly shows us that the earth is stationary, it is not moving, everything in the sky moves over top of us, and that it's not curving. The surface is not curving. So yeah.
If I may just respond specifically to what someone had suggested recently, that the word rukia, which is translated into firmament, meaning something firm. Someone recently have suggested, some people sometimes suggest that the word rukia actually means the expanse or the space. So in etymology, we have to know the source of the word rukia. The word rukia or rakua appears about 14 times throughout Scripture. Each and every time, without fail, it refers to something solid. Now, I brought here, because this is a crowd. David, I want to show you especially. Can you see this? The blue and the white?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so this is what we call tcheles. This is the, according to the Torah, we're supposed to have blue together with the white. The tcheles is supposed to remind us of the firmament. So we are taught in Chazal. Chazal means our rabbinical tradition, that the tcheles reminds us to look down at the sea, which is also blue. Once we're looking down at the sea, we look up at the firmament, which is also blue, and that reminds us of the heavenly throne. It reminds us that God is up there with a one-way looking glass, looking down at us and watching all of our actions. But you'll notice that there are lines between the blue and the white. You notice it goes levels, blue and white, blue and white. There's supposed to be 13 lines. So let me tell you a close look at it.
Yeah, I see it.
So it says in the Talmud in Mesechtes Menachos that the 13, it's called chuliyos, the 13 twirls around are supposed to represent the 7 solid firmaments and the expanse between them. So anybody who was to suggest that the Rukia is an expanse would have no way of explaining the Gemara, and this would have no meaning. This would have no symbolism. So obviously, it is our tradition, clearly from Scripture, clearly from our rabbinical tradition, that the firmament is solid. It does not mean expanse. It means something physical and solid. What's inside it may be non-physical, but the Rukia itself literally means that which has been banged out, that which has been produced through banging. That's what the word means.
Amazing.
Oh, right, can I say one more thing?
Good.
So something I thought was super cool. I don't know what everyone here believes, right? But so if you look at after the flood, right, you have the rainbow, which has obviously been like just completely absorbed and bastardized. But the rainbow, I'm like, oh, it's just something pretty in the sky to say it's not going to flood anymore. If you understand the firmament as an actual enclosure, right, over top of us, a vault over top of us, the rainbow would then be showing you a like lifetime literal depiction or confirmation, right, that the waters above are still being held back. So the rainbow all of a sudden makes sense as a sign that there will not be another flood. It's a literal depiction of the fact that it's still intact, basically. The firmament's intact and the water's being held back. And of course, during the Great Flood, there were gates that were opened up. So I find that very profound. All of a sudden, the rainbow is like, it's like a live little science project showing you literally, it's like a literal sign that, look, you can look for yourself, right? Like it's intact right now. And then you need a reflective surface to even get a rainbow also. So just throwing that out there. I think that's pretty cool.
All right. Aaron, you've had your hand up. What's going on? Can you unmute?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I guess I grew up what you would call indoctrinated, always being taught that the earth is round and it turns around every 20, I guess you'd say 23 hours, 56 minutes and 4 seconds. I guess what you're saying, a lot of what everyone's been saying is kind of been turning everything that I've always believed on its head, and it's hard to wrap my head around that. So I'm just going to ask like some basic questions. According to the flat Earth model, has anyone ever left the atmosphere of the Earth?
I'll give you my short answer, and then Austin. I don't think anyone has. I don't think space, as described, exists. It violates natural law. And if there's a firmament, I don't know if anybody can get through it. So, when you look at all the space agencies and you actually start looking into them, you can see they're all run by NASA. And nobody, in my opinion, ever goes up on a rocket. Austin?
Yeah, pretty much same answer. I mean, if there was a vacuum, actually, the way it's described, it would violate the second law of thermodynamics, as the air would fill the available space, right? It would equalize. So they claim it's a vacuum. Let's just say if it was something else, even the firmament, it's described as solid, as firm, as actual physical substance. So you can't leave there, and then you can't leave this place, basically. Like it's a terrarium that was created. So I would say flat Earth model, or and there's not a monolith of thought, right? So it's just a description of the earth, but the evidence shows that no one's left. And if the scriptures, if you understand the firmament, it's solid, then you can't leave here. So no one's ever left the quote unquote atmosphere.
And
The one,
Aaron, good, Aaron, you want to follow up with that? I want to give you a little further my opinion on that, but go ahead first. Go ahead.
yeah, so all we all see the videos and the pictures of everything. All these rockets been shooting up into outer space for over 50 years. So they take off, and then what? Like, we know an airplane. Everyone's been on an airplane. You go on an airplane, go from one place to the other. We know what's happening to those airplanes. But you have a rocket ship taking off. Where does it go next? Like, where are they hiding out for the next 6 months that the guy claims he's on the International Space Station?
Okay, so once we show you that NASA's faking stuff on the ISS, faking the rocket launches, we only really need to show you them doing it once, and then you can't believe anything they ever do again. So let me just show you one thing here. This is very recent. This is the recovery from the space station, the people that were stuck up there for 6 months. And by the way, the information that we've gotten from inside sources is they're hiding out at a base in Alaska. So these are the preliminary the small shoots. Now this thing's falling at a speed that you can't fathom, and then these little thin material shoots come out, and look at these thick cords. Right now, the main shoots come out. Now this thing's falling super fast, and if you just think about this, these parachutes are like, how fast is this really going? Right? These parachutes have to open up, and in reality, they would shred. But again, notice how thick these straps are. This is the footage of them rescuing the people. So now you got these thin nylon chutes. Now, if you look carefully here, you can see the cables going up to these things. I want you to remember that. I'm going to just fast forward a little bit here. Now, this is just, I didn't pause it. This is them coming down. This lasted for like a couple of minutes right here. They're barely moving. Like, what is going on here? Right? I'm going to jump forward a little bit, and it's going to splash down. And now the capsule's all burnt from coming in so fast. It's like a toasted marshmallow. Where did the lines go? Now we're going to zoom in. We're going to come in close. And somehow they got the drone there. Look at these little things falling in. This is all AI generated, right? Look, where are the lines? Let me step out of the way here. Where are the lines? Look at the water when we come in closer. Where are those cables? Now you're going to see a line over here for a split second, and there was a little glitch there. See that glitch? Right? This is an AI generated video. Let me just zoom in a little faster. Where are the lines? Where did the parachutes come out of? Where's the hole? This thing is super hot, 6,000 feet above the ground. Parachutes come out of where? Where? Right? This is an AI video. That's all you need. I can show you 100 others. There's tons of other stuff that you can watch, showing you that they're lying. So one of the places that the rockets go is the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle only became a thing the same year NASA started launching rockets. They go up, they curve out into the Bermuda Triangle, and they disappear. And if anybody happens to be out there where they shouldn't have been and see something they shouldn't have seen, maybe their boat sinks and nobody asks any questions. I don't know. Austin?
Yeah, there is actually a place officially recognized as the rocket graveyard. I think it's called Nemo in the ocean. It's just like publicly acknowledged that tons and tons of rockets and debris are there. Also, like when, say, astronauts go into the rocket, there's known to be a little hatch underneath it that you can just exit the rocket without being seen. And that's for safety reasons, quote unquote. But so people could just go get into a rocket, just drop in the hatch. They could shoot the rocket up. It could go over in the ocean. Also, I will say, even if you did shoot something up in the sky, and say a satellite is supposedly being launched, right? There's no reason that that can't go over top of a plain Earth. Actually, if we look at them, they take a flower of life geometry over top of a flat Earth. Um, so yeah, and I will say the like he just said, if you catch NASA faking one thing, then you would logically have to say, wait, why did you have to fake that? And obviously, I can't just believe anything that you say. There's like thousands and thousands of times. I mean, literally thousands of times. They've dropped things in free fall on the quote unquote ISS. They've accidentally dropped things and it falls straight down. They've glitched out. They've actually had their live stream glitch out and show that it was in a studio before. They've been caught faking space.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they may shoot a rocket up over the ocean and it can just go so far that then you can't see it. It can drop down in the ocean. And then maybe they even do shoot some up in the sky that come back down and land. But they're definitely not going where they're claiming they're going because they've been caught faking it multiple times.
Here's a live feed from NASA, from the space station, and there's this weird seam. This just shows that they're stitching, a high altitude footage together, making it, saying it's from the ISS. We can spend hours and hours and hours showing you all of the nonsense they do there. Sometimes they're on a zero-G plane. Sometimes they're using what's called augmented reality, where they're playing with virtual objects. They're actually wearing Microsoft HoloLens goggles on their face, but you can't see that because it's rendering their face in real time. And there's all different techniques. But again, once you start seeing how bad they're messing up, you really can't unsee it. Let me just show you one, and then we'll go to your next question. We'll go a little more. They got some fresh fruit up there. They're really happy. This is a lemon, and we're gonna zoom in on it, and we're gonna see. Look at the lemon. It goes right through his hand. Watch again. All right. This is called augmented reality. That's not real. And you can say, oh, well, cosmic rays and, transmission. No, you can make up excuses. It's not real. Once you understand it's not real, you have to discount everything they do. And again, we can go, if we have time, I'll show you more stuff later. But go ahead, Aaron, any follow-up to that? Because I was accused in the email chain of once you ask your question, you're going to be muted. We're going to spew our nonsense and not let you respond. So, Aaron, you seem like a truly curious person that's having their ball ripped away from them, and I was in your spot too, so I feel for you. What are your following questions?
He may not be able to respond and unmute himself. Right?
Hold on. That's there we go. Ask to unmute. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Aaron.
This is someone else. This is Asher.
Oh, Asher. Oh, yeah, Asher. Hold on a second. Let me get Aaron. I'll just remember to unmute people. Go ahead, Aaron. You can unmute now, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I'm back on.
Sorry about that. So yeah. So I don't want to be accused of not letting people talk. I want everyone to talk, especially the people that think flat Earth is stupid.
Okay. So I appreciate giving this chance to ask the questions to people who are adherents to this philosophy. I guess, there are the questions that, there are some things that you're describing. Okay, they're making this all up and feeding us this propaganda. What about the things that we can see? We see those dots that are going around, going from horizon to horizon, and everyone's saying those are satellites. And I'm not alive long enough to know, but they say that they weren't there 100 years ago. They weren't doing that. So I don't think those are new planets. I don't think they're shooting stars. They're able to predict it. I once saw a fascinating picture. Someone took a picture of the silhouette of the International Space Station against the moon.
Yep, a lot of people have.
Called a transit.
So, yeah,
transit at the moon. So, like, how would that be possible?
Well, I have a answer that it requires some understanding of physics. I'll tell it to you though. So, okay, so there's no reason that satellites can't exist over top of a stationary plain Earth, right? You would only then say, well, what they claim that they shoot them up and then they basically free fall around the globe. So this is a little technical, but they claim that based on the theory of relativity, that it's actually free falling simultaneously in a linear path and a circular path, so that the satellite's just it's constantly missing the Earth basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but the problem with it actually is that's a dynamic claim. You have kinematics and dynamics, and so actually, when you look at the satellite equations that they have to use and what the forces they have to account for actual inertial forces, which according to relativity do not exist. Meaning that they use an ECEF, Earth-centered, Earth-fixed frame, and then an ECI, Earth-centered inertial frame to transfer it over. But in the actual equations, to even get the satellite launches to work and then have the satellites up there, they use a stationary Earth with a spinning sky. And then that spinning sky generates inertial forces that are literally put in the equation, meaning that if the satellites are actually up there and those equations are what we're using, it actually disproves the mainstream model, the claim, the way that they put it up there, because there cannot be inertial forces in the theory of relativity and the heliocentric model. So all that to say, yeah, I think that there are absolutely satellites. You can go out there and you can track them and you can know when they're going to get them and you can use Starlink to get internet. And I think that they actually prove that the Earth's not moving and they're moving over top of us. You can then take their path and just put it over an azimuthal projection and you're just going to get a flower of life, right? Which is also what we even see with the quote unquote planets. So long story short, satellites actually debunk the mainstream model.
Yeah, so I'm going to add to that a little bit, and we're all trying to figure out what's up in the sky, and the question is, what are we seeing? So this is Starlink. This was from a couple of years ago, and a few years ago, everybody was seeing these. Since then, Elon has put up thousands more of these lines of satellites in the sky, and less people are seeing them every year. So that's weird. So is this just a parlor trick to make us think that satellites are up there? Now, they say that a Starlink satellite is maybe the size of 3 grown men, right? So here is a whoops, let me get over here. Here is a 747, and the engine, you could probably fit 3, 5, 10 satellites in there, but let's just say it's the size of one satellite. It's way bigger. It's way bigger. Here's a 747 at cruising altitude. When you look up and see it on a clear day, you can see the wings, but you really can't make out the engine size, right? 7 miles high. So the question is, this is a man right here next to that. So that's just showing you how big this is way bigger than a satellite. So the question is, at 7 miles high, if you doubled the height of that plane, you wouldn't even be able to see the entire 747, which is gigantic. The Starlink satellites, when they're directly above you, that's the closest point it could be if you're on a ball or a flat Earth, is 340 miles. How can you see something smaller than this when you couldn't see this entire airplane at 14 miles high, but you can see these Starlinks at 340 miles high? Now, people say, well, what about Starlink service? It works. It does work, right? It does work. So I was talking to a military guy that was in Vietnam, and he said the communication devices they used in Vietnam were exactly the same looking as the Starlink. So what are they connecting to? Well, we were told that they were connecting to AWACS airplanes, right? They were connecting to airplanes that were relaying their signals. Makes a lot of sense. But now with commercial airliners in the sky, all the new airliners have a satellite bubble on them on the bottom, not on the top, right? So how does that work? Hold on. How does that work? So when you're on an airplane, we're told that, when I'm on there, I got my airplane mode on, I'm connected to their Wi-Fi, and I am listening to videos, I'm uploading stuff. I've got great internet connection. It used to be just like when you're driving in a car, you relay from tower to tower to tower, right? That's 7, 10 miles below you, whatever. But now I get this message on my phone saying, "Oh, look, let people know you're in touch via satellite." Really? So we have satellites in the air. You got a satellite way up here. This isn't even to scale, right? You got your airplane here. So now they're telling me that the airplane, from the bottom of the airplane where the transmitter is sending it a minimum of 250 miles up. And then that satellite that has no power connection is falling around the Earth following all the motions of the Earth. is sending the signal back down right past the airplane to a cell tower. That's the official story, right? So I contend that the Starlink service, lots of the communication service that we have wirelessly when there's no towers around, are connecting to airplanes, which are literally just very high cell towers. The higher a cell tower is, the more the farther it can transmit. And we're getting more and more evidence of this. There's people that have Starlink service that are in in the middle of nowhere on little islands, and they say they lose their service when these are guys, military guys that track airplanes and everything. They got all the tracking devices. They said when the last airplane leaves their area, their Starlink service goes out. Interesting, but again, things transmitting signals in the sky are not mutually exclusive to a flat Earth. Aaron,
I do just want to again say, so like, even if what Dave's saying is incorrect and there are satellites up there, like, I don't want you to misinterpret what he's saying as if that somehow means like, oh, if they have to be planes, can't believe in satellites or anything if I think the Earth's flat. That's not the case.
No.
Right. Yeah, because again, they actually use centripetal, centrifugal, and Euler forces, which are real inertial forces that cannot be in the mainstream model. And they have to account for this to even put them up there. As in, they have to treat it as if the Earth's not moving and the universe, quote unquote, is spinning around them, a rotating sky generating real inertial forces. And then we have interferometry measurements that actually correlate to altitude, confirming that. So I know it's just, it's a little technical, and it would take time to fully explain all that. But yeah, satellites, right. I think there are satellites up there, and I love them because, I've talked to many astrophysicists and many engineers and aerospace engineers, and they don't have a rebuttal for this. It's good. Right. So it's actually like one of my favorite evidences.
And a lot of people think that the satellites are responsible for communications from country to country, when in fact it's just 99% of our communications go on undersea cables. Aaron.
Yeah. Okay.
Final question, and then we'll get to somebody else. If you want to raise your hand again and come back, we'll come back to you if we have time.
Sure. Okay. So, like we said, like I was saying about a lot, this is kind of challenging a lot of my beliefs. I remember when I was younger, some guys were huddled around someone's Wikipedia article talking about various hoaxes that are going on, the JFK, yeah shot, not shot, all this type of stuff. And one of the things was, landing on the moon. So one of the things that I read was that kind of convinced me, okay, they must have done this, is because they said 300,000 people were involved in getting Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins, getting them to the moon. And how in the world could you either fool 300,000 people or get 300,000 people to keep a secret? In Judaism, we have this concept, once 3 people know something, it's no longer a secret. That Chavra is like, he knows him, he's going to tell him, I'm just telling one person, and that person tells another person, it gets out. So if you have 300,000 people knowing something, then, that this is not, that they didn't actually land on the moon, it would seem that it would, the whole secret would just fall apart.
We get your point. Austin, you go first, and I'll follow up.
Yeah, so I would agree with you. If that many people knew, then by now it would have come out. But those many people wouldn't have known. But that big number comes from the fact that they just had a bunch of different contractors make one little part and send it in, so that they could literally say the very thing that you're saying, right? Oh, they couldn't have faked it. Look at all the people. They had no direct access to anything going on. They just made a little part and sent it in. And in fact, Gene Kranz, the Apollo flight director, said that the simulations were so good that at that point, that the people in the room, actually in the control room, couldn't tell the difference between the real, quote unquote, real thing and the fake thing. Meaning even the people that worked directly on it at NASA wouldn't be in on some big elaborate lie. There would be only a handful of people that would have had to actually lie about it. And that big number would have no idea, right? They just like, oh, patriotism, I helped us go to the moon. I made a door hatch or whatever, right? So that's where that number comes from. They contracted out most of the pieces, which is a logistical nightmare. The only reason you would do that is so someone could then say, well, it couldn't have been faked, right? So that's the answer, is that it's compartmentalized, and they aren't in on a lie.
Right. And the back when they did Apollo, they contracted with Austin, was it 2,000 different companies, or maybe it was even more than that. But think about trying to do that, to pull the moon landing together before email, did they have faxes back then? It's like, it would have been a logistical nightmare, but it was all done this, why would they go to such a big lie? It's to keep people lost in space and hide creation. That's my opinion. Why they do that? There's lots of evidence for it, but you can't contain a person that knows the truth of creation, and they want to keep us literally on this satanic spinning ball. But real quick on the moon landing, let me just show you one thing on the moon, which you probably haven't seen. So here's an astronaut. We got the sun is over here behind him, and his shadow is going that way. And so we're just going to watch him go to the right. You can see the shadows on the rocks going to the right. And we're just turning a little bit. And then when we get over here, his shadow is now going that way, right? And let me just jump forward here a little bit. Oops. And he's going to now go to the right. We're just going to turn just a little farther. We haven't gone a lot. And now the shadow is going in the opposite direction, which is impossible on the moon with a single light source. So if we go back to the middle where he was and we watch, you see these two lights on his visor? When he turns, there's two more lights. So watch, there's 1, 2. And when he turns, you're going to see 3, 4. What are those reflections? There should only be one reflection because there's only one light source on the moon. Here he goes. Turning. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know. It's not the sun. Maybe it's something like this. I don't know. And Aaron, I'll just, you can, final words.
Okay. Oh gosh, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. My question was, so it's just trying to understand what you just said. It sounds like you're saying that the sole reason that NASA and really every government in the world who has access to possibly, depending on what you believe, whether they have access to outer space and can potentially take pictures of what the Earth looks like. We're talking about millions and millions of people who are trying to withhold the truth from the entire world. And you're saying the whole thing is just to prevent people from believing in creation?
So if you had a pet mountain lion, oops, am I muted? No, I'm not muted. If you had a pet mountain lion and you had a 1/4 acre yard fenced in, he'd be pacing that fence back and forth and be very unhappy. Put him in 50 acres, he'd probably still be pissed about the fence. Put him in 5,000 acres. When he sees a fence, he'll probably just turn around and go live on his day. Put a human in 500 million acres. As soon as he sees a fence, he's going to want to know what's the other side. So the best prison for the human mind is a ball, because there is no fence. They can't see. They can't see what's going on. We are in this earth creation. It's God created creation, and we have incredible powers. They tell us that we only use 10% of our brain, 10% of our DNA. The rest is junk, right? Which is nonsense. We have incredible perceptive powers, whatever. And that's all been hidden from us. And so the way to disconnect you from this incredible realm that we're in is to put your head in a prison. And that prison is a ball, and that ball has walls. And it says that we live in limit. We live, in scarcity. We live in danger. Asteroids are going to hit us. The sun's going to supernova. All of this nonsense, aliens from outer space are going to come. They have you living in fear. So deep down in your psyche, if you're spinning out of control, lost in space, in a diluted creation, right? How do you dilute something? You pour it into something bigger. If I poured a glass of milk into a swimming pool, it's pretty diluted. But if I poured it in the middle of the ocean, it's pretty much gone. So how do you dilute creation? You pour it into infinite space. And, they want you believing that you live on a spinning, whirling, twirling solar system. Not only are we spinning around the Earth, around the sun, spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, orbiting at 66,000, and chasing the sun at 500,000, and somehow all of these planets just stay on that perfect plane with the sun. How do you make proper decisions? How do you have a proper relationship with creation if you live in this nonsensical world?
I just got to correct again. There are not millions of people in on any lie. The number would be nowhere close to that, because again, they claim they went to the moon in 1969. It's been over 5 decades. They haven't even gone back. There's just a handful of world governments that even claim to be able to go to outer space, and it would only be a small group of people at the top levels and it would be classified that would even have to be in on any type of deception. There would be nowhere close to millions. We're talking about a couple hundred people, and yeah, absolutely, a couple hundred people scattered out throughout world governments could keep a lie, keep a secret.
All right, Asher.
Hi, how are you, Dave?
Good. Speak up nice and loud, please. Much. Yeah.
What?
Speak a little louder if you could.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. I'm enjoying this presentation very much. I have to agree with Reb Isaac that the Bible certainly sounds like a flat earth model. I think that is pretty correct. I think one of the things that scare people away from the flat earth community, especially Jews, because the Torah does say it's a flat earth, is that many people in the flat earth community can be anti-Semitic, can be Holocaust deniers. I'm just curious if you guys would be willing to denounce that for all of us to make sure that we could participate in this community.
People can have all sorts of opinions on all sorts of things, and we could spend the next 5 hours discussing things that'll turn everyone into a complete and total frenzy. So I don't even want to address that question, and I don't want anyone to infer that either Austin or I or have any other opinion on that. Austin and I like looking at facts, like looking at biblical texts, and looking at it from there. So we're not gonna go down that path.
Okay, can I ask a second question?
Sure.
I'm just curious how you guys understand the flights in the southern hemisphere. As far as I could tell, you could go to the sky scanner, you could find the same flight in two opposite directions, going the same amount of time, and the classic flat Earth model that should not be possible. They're for way shorter flights than they actually should be. And I understand there's some sort of answer with wind currents and stuff like that. But that shouldn't make sense for both ways. Like they're both directions are the same flight. So I'm just
Good,
curious
Austin.
to answer that.
Yeah, so those flights actually don't have the same time. Like if you're talking about usually people are talking about the southern continent flights, Australia to whatever. So actually one way will be 3 to 4 hours longer than the other way, which actually makes no sense on the globe. It should just be exactly the same both ways. But if they are in fact catching a current, which they are, because if you actually look at the ground speed compared to the airspeed, they have to be catching a current. Again, why would it take 3 or 4 hours longer one direction than the other? It's because the plane's going faster on one of the flights. And that would be because they're actually catching a current. And even in like the north, a plane has been clocked going like over 850 miles per hour ground speed because of a wind current. So it's like a well-known thing that planes can go,
Right.
It could go over 1,000 miles per hour. So,
And also here is these planes that are doing those flights are usually at a little higher altitude than the average plane. Here are these winds here are like 200 to 300 miles an hour, up at 40 or 45,000 feet, somewhere around there. And if you look at it, the outside ring is going this way and the inside ring is going this way. So they do take different routes and they do use these wind currents. And if you actually look at the flights, and calculate the wind currents, a tailwind, they actually prove that the Earth is flat because the planes would have to fly below 400 miles an hour to take the time that they take to get to certain places. And we know that if you believe the whole airline story, they want the most efficient way. They're going to take advantage of that tailwind to save fuel.
Are these pilots in another conspiracy? Because Austin said there's only 200 people.
No. The pilots are not. However, there are many, many, many pilots that now know that the Earth is flat. I have a Delta airline pilot that I sometimes call up live on a podcast, and he'll come and talk about it. But if you look, I have a section here on my app. Are all pilots in on it? And in here is, oops, let me just go over here. If you look, there's so many. There you go. There's this is a whistleblower about the moon landing. Whoops, where did I go? Sorry about that. Why isn't it go? There we go. Sorry about that. There's all sorts of videos, but here's one. 3 hours, 28 pilots confirming the Earth is flat. We have a show called Globebusters, and 5, 6, 7 years ago, whatever it was, we had I think it was I forget what airline, a Lufthansa pilot. She came on, told us how the Earth is flat, explained it perfectly, and the next day she was grounded. right? So most pilots don't know, but the southern pilots do know, mostly because the northern flights are very similar on a flat Earth and a globe Earth. But let me just show you one flight route that might help some people here. So New Zealand's here. You got Australia around the ball here. You got Argentina and South America. FlightAware says this is the shortest route, this little curved route. We're not going over Antarctica. There are other islands out here where they could land. It's not that far of a flight, right? So that would be the best flight route for it. But let's look how it really goes. This flight goes from New Zealand across the equator to San Francisco, across America to Texas, and then all the way back down across the equator to Argentina. Why did it do that? Right? And what did your mother teach you? The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. New Zealand, San Francisco, Houston, Texas, Argentina. I could show you 50 more that fall into the same thing. I could show you some emergency landings that land in really weird places. But again, all of this stuff always goes to a flat Earth. Austin, any follow up to that?
Yeah, again, the pilots wouldn't have to be in on anything, right? It's like publicly known that one of those flights take way longer than the other one, which means they'd have to be catching jet stream. So they, I know tons of pilots that are flat earthers, and all pilots know you have to fly the Earth as if it's a flat Earth, right? Like a stationary flat Earth. And the official story is like, yeah, you fly the plane like it's flat and stationary, but it's actually just curved and moving. You just can't tell. So yeah, like no, pilots aren't in on it. I have a buddy that was actually in the Air Force who is a flat earther, and he told me all kinds of different observations he made while flying when deployed in Afghanistan that proved it was flat. So I probably know over 20 pilots that are flat earthers, and again, there would be no grand conspiracy of people having to keep lies or deceptions, right? There's nothing a pilot would have to lie about at all.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate that.
Well, and one more thing. One more
question
thing.
to Austin, please.
Yeah, let me just follow up. Hold that for 1 second. So people say, well, that flight you said, they had to drop other people off, and that's where their hub is, and all sorts of other nonsense. So this was after the World Cup in Doha. So the team from Buenos Aires won, and they had their own private plane, and they just wanted to go home, but they went to Rome first, and then they went to Rome to get fuel. Does that make sense? Because it looks shorter from here to here than it is from here to here. But if you look at it on a flat Earth map, they went to Rome because they can't get fuel in the middle of the ocean. And again, it's another straight line.
All
Go
right,
ahead.
thank you.
Sure.
One final thing. I believe Isaac spoke at length of the Jewish tradition of having flat Earth, and I think he's correct that the Jewish tradition is that the Earth is flat. I think it's very clear from both the Tanakh and the Gemara that he's correct about that. Doesn't mean that that's reality, but does mean that's the Jewish tradition. However, I've heard Austin in the past has mentioned a different Jewish tradition, the Kabbalah, the Kabbalistic Jewish tradition, and the Zohar seems to imply that the Earth is round. And I'm just curious if you can mention more about how the Kabbalah has the Earth is round, or whether it's not round, and whether that they're trying to hide something from that.
I don't know about the Kabbalah. I've never heard that of Kabbalah saying that the Earth is round, right? Like I wouldn't know any specific reference in terms of that. Also, I know that that's like what a minority ideology within like Jewish belief, but I don't remember ever seeing anything about it being round, so I'd have to see the
It's linked to in
specifics.
the chat, the very beginning, like a copy and paste it. The Zohar Vayikra says the world's like a ball, and when it's light on one side, it's dark on the other.
Okay, yeah, I am not familiar with that. I don't know much about Kabbalah at all, to be honest.
All right, thank you.
And
Mhm.
hey,
Want to go for that?
one more thing. There's a movie that put out called Flatten the Curve, and it's commercial and military pilots all talking about how the Earth is flat and how their planes only work on a flat Earth, how their weapons only work on a flat Earth. It's a great documentary. You can find it on my website, flatearthdave.com. Just go scroll down. You'll see a picture of me. It says Crash Course. Click that. You'll get this playlist of all of these great documentaries. And I encourage people just, to take the time and watch. It's easy to believe you live on a ball because you could just say, I believe. That's what I was told. That's what, to know you live on a ball will take time and effort, and you'll fail and you'll end up being a flat earther. So we've done the work. We've done the work. Most people don't believe in
to go on the final experiment and you
Yeah.
turned it down.
I turned it down because, we don't have to get into that now, but that entire thing was a massive deception. And if you look at the guy who put it together, there's some super fishy stuff about him. And I'd like to say, I'd like to say that I am a good person. I am a good at knowing when there's deception, knowing when there's somebody's not being honest. And I don't trust that guy as far as I would throw him. So I wanted nothing to do with the trip.
And you think the whole thing with this light in Antarctica was a fake?
Well, here's the thing. It doesn't matter whether they faked the sun, whether it was real, whether it really circled down there, whether it is, there are a whole bunch of different flat earth explanations on how it could happen. The thing is, if you look at all the different explanations of flat earth, they're all plausible. You can't throw them out, whether you think they're very small percentage chance of being real. That's fine. But the heliocentric model says that hydrogen and helium that defy gravity on Earth, and gas laws says gas always fills the available space, they act differently in space. They collapse and turn into burnt nuclear furnaces that burn suns. They tell us that our sun is made of 99 or 98% helium and hydrogen. It burns 640 billion tons per day for billions of years and never gets any smaller. It has gravity that holds on to Pluto and Neptune and Saturn, right? But it ignores our moon as our moon circles around the Earth towards the sun and away from the sun. The heliocentric explanation for the sun is completely 100% scientifically breaks natural law, impossible. So to say that the circling sun proves the globe, you have to take all the other garbage that comes with it. What if there was a real circling sun down there, what it tells us is how well we understand the sky. It doesn't tell us anything about the shape of the Earth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Asher and Isaac. I made you a mod, so if you need to chime in, you can just unmute yourself at any time. I think. I think that's it. Isaac, you have your hand up, so you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, so we so much appreciate Asher coming on. He really challenges us. He thinks broadly, and Asher, we sincerely appreciate you joining us. We know you find difficult certain things here. And we're glad to hear what you have to say. Specifically, I would like to get into, just very briefly, everything I'm going to say now is very brief. I'm making notes, so I'll just respond to things very quickly. Okay, so when you approach someone and you start discussing the true shape of the Earth, you're going to see a few deflections. So we're going to go through all of them because they're constantly coming up. On the chat, it came up multiple times. The first deflection is, you want to know about the shape of the Earth? Oh, let's look up there. Maybe we can figure out. Okay, first thing is, we don't know any, the sky is a mystery. This is how I started off. And that is that our tradition for thousands of years, our tradition and the Earth's tradition, we don't know what's going on up there. We don't know if the celestial bodies are physical or non-physical. We don't know if they're just illusions and luminaries that are here to benefit us, but have no, what we call mamashis, have nothing physicality to it. We don't know their location. We don't know their function. And when you're looking at something, we're able to define, we're able to determine the shape of the Earth with simple calculations, with taking P900 camera and going to the seashore and seeing distant buildings that you should not be able to see. It's very simple to do. And it says a pasuk, Hashemayim Shemayim Lashem, the heavens belong to Hashem, Va'aretz nasan levnei adam, but the land, the earth has been given to man. The answer's on the land. Let's not look up to the heavens and figure out through mysterious ways something that we can figure out so simply by just looking down, by just taking the most simplest proofs, but they're out there. Okay, another distraction that constantly comes out is I would like to show you how the earth is flat. Well, what would be the motivation? What's this human psychology? Why would somebody want to do that? I said, no, no problem. So let's first come to the determination that the earth is flat, and then we can get into this, vague description of human psychology after that. No, no, no. I need to know the human psychology first. That's a second. That's the second one. And the third one is we described in conspiracy. So when approaching this topic, you just have to come in with an open mind. You don't have to accept what you're hearing now. There are some people who are hearing these ideas for the first time. You don't have to accept it. Dave is not asking, oh, trust me because I said so. You don't have to trust Dave. You don't have to trust Austin. Listen to what they're saying. Come in with an open mind. You don't have to accept it, but don't reject it either. Let it simmer. Keep it as an idea for maybe 3-4 days. It couldn't hurt you. It can never hurt you. After 3-4 days, if nothing comes up, just let it go.
Let me chime in. I say, but I take it one step farther. Don't believe anything we say. Verify all things, right? And we've made it easy for you. We've done the experiments. We've documented them. You can look at them, and then don't just believe that experiment. You can verify it. I think it was Asher in the chat said, Aaron said, why don't we go up and just take a picture of flat Earth? Well, this is at 100,000 feet. This is what you see. You see a flat, stationary Earth. Now, you could imagine that's just the edge of a ball, but none of the math adds up. We got a sun that's very local. It's creating a local hotspot. And I was told by some military pilots recently, that once a plane goes over 45,000 feet, it can see the sun no matter what time of day it is, no matter where it is. It can see the sun, and that's why they don't let planes fly, much over 33,000 feet. So it's all very, very interesting.
Yeah, I want to say this real fast. So the guy I know that was in the Air Force for almost 30 years, he had to leave because he didn't go along with some of the pandemic stuff. But he was deployed in Afghanistan. He was flying at 28,000 feet, and he saw the K2 mountain range, which has an elevation of 28,000 feet from over 300 miles away, right? And according to the globe math, when he was looking at his little targeting system, they have manual optics and they have radars, right? And they cross-reference them. The mountain range should have been multiple degrees below their local level because it's 300 miles away, right? So if it's the same height, but it's on a ball, it should actually be lower than their straight line out from them. And it was level with their local level. So they saw K2 mountain range 300 miles away at 28,000 feet elevation while they were flying 28,000 feet altitude, completely level with them. It should have been multiple degrees below the plane. And up there at that height, you can't even claim refraction, right? So it's like a definitive reputation of the globe model. Yeah. And then what the gyroscopes do as well, he said, prove that the Earth's not a globe because it would actually have to tip over as you fly over it and then eventually flip. It doesn't do that. So just throwing it out there, it's like a very damning piece of evidence in terms of planes. So, and I will say this too, so people don't know the history of it. We were like, you know what? We had the same idea. Let's go as high as we can to see what the Earth looks like. So, if you go back a few years when flat Earth kind of became a thing again, we sent up a balloon, and it went like 120,000 feet or whatever. Then we saw the horizon was completely flat. This was just after Felix Baumgartner jumped out of, they called it the edge of space. He was nowhere close. Anyway, it showed this really curved Earth. So that's why Flat Earth was like, wait a minute, let's send our own balloon up. And we showed it was flat. And then and only then did they come out with Neil deGrasse Tyson and kind of update the official story and say, oh, well, it looked like it was curved in the Felix Baumgartner jump, but that was a GoPro. And actually, if you were that high off the Earth, it would be completely flat. So the official story is that if you're hundreds of thousands of feet up, that it's still going to look completely flat, right? So, I mean, yeah, when we go up and independently check, the horizon rises with us no matter how high you go, and it's completely flat. So,
right. Yeah. This is Felix at ground level, and you see the curved Earth, and then this is him at altitude, 127,000 feet. It's the same curve, so that just proves there is a GoPro lens. But if you actually look how far the drop would be at 600, the horizon should be 618 miles away. So if you're on the Earth and you want to see something 618 miles away on Earth, it would have to be 250,000 feet tall for you to see just the top of it peeking over the ball, right? So you can't see my fist. My fist would have to be 250,000 feet high for you to see it, to peek over the ball. But then you have to add the height of the balloon to how much the drop would be, 381,000 feet below, right? But here it is, and if we compare it, if we compare it to when he takes off, let me see if this is the right one. So here's him getting in. I'm going to draw a red line here. That's the horizon, and here he is at altitude. The line's at the same height. It should be 381,000 feet below, right? If something doesn't curve, then it's what? It's flat. And also, when he's disconnected from the Earth for 3.5 hours, he should land thousands of miles to the west. I believe Felix landed east of where he took off. So somehow that thing went up and outran the spin of the Earth. It gained speed, which violates, natural law, and landed in front of the spinning Earth.
Here's what you should ask yourself, though. Why did they show the whole world this video, use a GoPro lens that made it look like it was this little bitty ball? I mean, if you actually look at New Mexico, it's like takes up the whole entire Earth, right? It would be ridiculous for that to be an actual depiction of a supposed globe. But they showed the whole world this. Because I don't know if you guys watched it. He passed out. It was crazy to watch. It was super cool, right? And then they said he was at the edge of space. Official story, space doesn't start at 60 miles. He's nowhere close to that. So they tell the world, look, he's jumping from space. And look, you can see how beautiful the globe is. You can see the curvature of the Earth. And it was a complete lie, complete deception, right? And then only once we independently send up balloons, show that the Earth's completely flat from that height, did they come out and then correct it and say, oh, well, it just looked like it was curved. It actually wasn't. So that should, if you're going to think critically, it's wait a minute, why are they intentionally trying to mislead people to make them think the Earth is curving? Because if it actually is, you would obviously not have to do that, right? So it makes sense if it's not, and you want people to believe it's curved, right?
And as far as us sending up a rocket, this was Red Bull sent up a rocket called the Go Fast rocket, and it went up. It's spinning around. Now this gave us a live feed. Looking straight down, which NASA never gives us. Edit. There's 7 edits before it clears the tower. But it went up, and then if you actually listen to the video, there's no sound on here. It goes kerplunk, like it went into a thicker medium. Not sure what that is. Could be what the NASA whistleblowers say, that there's plasma up there. But the most interesting part is when it turned on its side, we could see the moon. Ready? There's the moon. That's the moon. Earth is looking pretty flat. So the question is, where was the moon at the time of that launch? And it was in Arizona, so over here somewhere, at 11 a.m. So here's 12 a.m. at one time zone over. So that's where the sun was. The moon was over here. So if that rocket took off, it was a millimeter above this ball, and the moon was down here. How did they see it? Same thing in the Blue Origin loss. They saw the moon, and the moon was well below the horizon when they did their silly Katy Perry launch the other day. Asher is back with another question because there's nobody else. And go ahead, Asher.
All right. I'll be honest, I'm not a scientist, and I don't think I could challenge you on the science something like this. You've researched this a lot, quite clearly, and you have a lot of videos and stuff like this on this. So I'm gonna look into it, and I think that you've done a very good job, demonstrating the science of it. My main issue is this. We got, I would say I could trust you, right? Or I could try doing my experiments myself, or I
Don't
could
trust
trust
us.
all the scientists in the world who have created computers. They've created rocket ships. They've claimed to send a man to the moon, which is pretty insane if they have. They've invented cancer cures. They've invented ships and internet and television, a bunch of other radio, a bunch of other cool inventions, right? And all these people, that you keep talking about, they also claim that the Earth goes around the sun, and the sun is using hydrogen. They've done all these experiments to prove it, which I personally cannot figure out whether it's true or not true. It's not my area of expertise. Or I could trust you, right, who could make a video, make an app, not even that great of an app, I'm not sure why I should trust you over them if I have no ability to figure this out myself.
All right. Well, you shouldn't trust us. We tell you not to trust us. And the people that, you said they've cured cancer. That's interesting. I haven't seen that yet. You know, there's lots of information out there. It's all being hidden from you. It's up to you whether you want to look into it or not. Austin?
So yeah, I mean, well, yeah, it's an appeal to authority, an appeal to popularity and consensus. It's like you shouldn't view anything like that. Like, let me just take my brain out, hand it to someone else, and trust what they're telling me it is. You should investigate it for yourself. And then you made a claim that they have all kinds of experiments to prove it. They don't. Like, the actual history of what happened was they claimed that the Earth was going around the sun, and then all the evidence kept showing that the Earth actually isn't moving and that it's in the center of the universe. So what they did was keep updating it. First, they looked out in deep space with Edwin Hubble, and they saw that everything was evenly distributed, and it showed the Earth in the center. And they're like, wait a minute, this can't be the case. So then they changed the model to say, oh, it's expanding in all directions, creating the illusion that the Earth is stationary and in the center. And then they did a test called Michelson-Morley, which is using interferometry, and it showed that the Earth was not moving like it was supposed to. What do? They usher in Albert Einstein, who says, oh, well, time slows down and distances contract just the perfect amount to deceive us and make us think the Earth's not moving. So all the tests and evidence show consistently that the Earth is in a special position. It's in the center. And then this is the meta here, right? To quote some of these people, because they'll all tell you, the scientists you're talking about openly state all the evidence suggests the Earth is in the center of the universe and not moving. Stephen Hawking, Edwin Hubble, even Albert Einstein, right? And then this is what Hubble said, right? We have to. All the evidence suggests the Earth's in the center, akin to an ancient depiction of Earth, of a central Earth, but we disregard this possibility because of the horror of a special and unique position. So like they openly have a philosophical bias against the Earth being special, which obviously denotes a creator. And obviously it also immediately puts the scriptures on the table as a legitimate source, right? It now brings the authenticity of the scriptures to the forefront, that it's actually given us literal, accurate descriptions of all of these things thousands of years ago. And so if you wanted to undermine the validity of the scriptures, if you wanted to remove the creator, right, this is how you would do it. And this is what they did. And then if you actually investigate it, you'll find all this on your own. You shouldn't just believe us. You should just go test it. You should also not just blindly believe consensus either. They've been wrong about like everything imaginable, right? So yeah, that would be my quick answer. I mean, I would want to go on about that topic forever because that's like the crux of the issue. But
all right, Isaac, no more hands up. Anybody else have any questions? Something, whether if you believe the Earth is flat and have a question, I'd love to hear it. If you don't believe the Earth is flat, you must have questions. Would love to hear it. So
I could just make closing remarks if no one else has any more questions. The first one is that many people on this chat have joined us in this, what we were describing before, the tcheles. Just a quick story. The tcheles comes from the murex snail. This was banned by the Roman Empire. The methodology and which animal that it came from had been lost for I would say about 1,000 years, maybe longer. I don't know the exact number. Recently, over the past couple of decades, it suddenly became known that we once again have the ability to fulfill this mitzvah of tcheles. And it was just around that same time. Remember, tcheles is here to remind us of the firmament, to remind us of the solid dome above us, that we're protected and we're being watched over. Just around that same time, mysteriously, the flat earth, by the way, in the 1970s, there was a major flat earther who said he had not succeeded in his entire life to convince even one person, not even his wife. And within a couple of decades, suddenly it's become this global phenomenon. And on a spiritual realm, we think that tcheles has something to do with that. Also, I just wanted to end up that sometimes we're on this chat and people say, give me an answer to my question in 3 lines of text. I technically probably could put something together in 3 lines of text, but the answers are all there. If you take a look behind Dave, you'll see this app that I use. This is how information is learned these days. The information produced in these videos, pictures worth 1,000 words, a video is worth 1,000 pictures, can be explained so much better. You'll come out with so much more clarity. The way I'm able to explain to people the movement of all the stars and all the constellations could not be done in any other way. So it's there for you. If you don't have access to it, eventually it's going to come onto a desktop computers very soon, and it'll be accessible that way. If not, come visit me. Let's get together for an hour. We'll get together in a coffee shop. We'll go through everything. It's so much easier and better to explain these things. The work has been done.
Yep.
So don't be shy.
On the app, there's a section called experiments right here. Amazing. Like, all the work has been done for you. Watch it and then recreate it yourself. But these experiments take time, and weather conditions have to cooperate, and people's schedules have to cooperate. And it's not as easy as you think. There's all the frequently asked questions. So all the stuff that's being asked in the chat, like, you need visuals. You need to see the stuff. All of the videos, there's thousands of videos in here. They're all being hidden from you. And that's it. You know, if you want to learn about flat Earth, Googling it isn't going to help you. And if you don't want to get the app, just go to my website. On my, you'll see it says crash course in the middle of the website. Click that, and all of the best documentaries are there, including the one with the military pilots and the commercial pilots and everything else. So that was a lot shorter than I thought, and I wish some of the loudmouths from the chat that had so many questions, but they're not here asking their questions. That would have been nice.
Thanks so much for Dave. Thanks so much for Shalom for putting this together, and maybe some future time.
All right, somebody just joined a little late, so thanks for coming, everybody. And you know, if you have questions, I'd appreciate it if you check the FAQ section before you ask me, because I don't have time to answer all these questions. That's why I made the app. And also Austin's channel. Austin, telling me where your channel is.
Witsit gets it on everything: YouTube, X, etc. Witsit gets it.
Yep. He's got a great series, and I have it linked in the homeschool section on the app called Schooling Globers. If you want some, 3-hour videos on specific topics that are dived into deeply, if that's a sentence. So, all right, everybody, thanks so much. Have a great day.
There were a few rabbis that were discussing on the text on the email about the, quantum physics, and someone told me to ask Austin what his take is on quantum physics.
Yeah, briefly, it's just a field that's like limited to materialism, right? So because they have to believe that everything is just in the material world, and they try to quantify everything, which, quanta, the German word for count, is where quantum comes from, because they have to be able to quantify everything. So they have to treat it as if it's little physical material balls, basically, so that they can count them. But actually, there's a metaphysical, and so all the evidence consistently shows that. But so quantum is very it's like very amazing in terms of we discover all kinds of things, and there are legitimate experiments within it, but the interpretations are like always pseudoscience, reification fallacies, because they can't accept the fact that this place isn't just matter, that there's something outside of the material world. So that would be my quick address of it. In basically, it's like the attempt to omit the ether, and replace it with materialism. And now they're slowly kind of trying to hijack the ether, and et cetera. So yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah. Anything else?
As I see someone here that you don't know. Hi, Ion.
This is Ian. He was moderating the chat, making sure everybody was behaving. He's a friend from the UK, and that's it. He was
nice to meet you, Shalom. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So
likewise, yeah.
My
apologies about what Usher did.
Yeah, whatever. He was. I guess he was one of those trolls in the chat, but somebody was pushing like, "Don't go to the Zoom meeting. Don't go to the Zoom meeting." I thought that was amazing. Amazing.
So that definitely had an effect. It definitely had an effect.
Yeah.
Because they believed that by coming on, so somehow profane God's name by coming on. So
yeah.
So that you know, and but whatever. I'm very, very liberal. So many people, people are flat earthers tell me you gotta kick these guys off, and I won't do it because I just don't believe in censorship. But Usher did break his word to me in writing.
Yeah, I mean, listen. It's a whole discussion, but the thing is, we could waste our time. We can switch to 9/11, and then we stuck on 9/11 for 5 hours, and that's it. By the way, I love talking about 9/11. One of my favorites. All right, listen, thanks, and I hope that was useful to some people. We'll let you know when we upload it, and you can share it with whoever wants it. Yeah,
very good.
The Flat Earth Clock app has a new feature that will be a game changer. Flat Earth proof flashcards are here. Over 200 proofs destroying the globe. Swipe to go to the next card or click the shuffle icon to go to a random card. If you see an info icon on the top, click it to get more information on that specific flat Earth proof. Click the back button to go back to a previous card at any time. The more info icon could be a website, a playlist, a book, or a video. Use the share icon to share cards with others via text, email, airdrop, or any other sharing modality. Update your Flat Earth Clock app today and start increasing your Flat Earth knowledge and sharing it with others.